Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelancer writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to another DM's Guild review, my written and video review series where I take a look at the adventures and supplemental material at the Dungeon Masters Guild website. With this video, I'll be reviewing the DM's Guild subclass supplement, Those Lost in Madness, designed by Milosz Gawecki for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. A review copy has been provided for the purposes of this review. If you enjoy my videos, consider using my affiliate links for your DM's Guild shopping and supporting me via patreon.com/roguewatson. Shout out to my platinum patrons, Andrew, Brian, Richard, Joe, Will, Tiny Dancer, and Charles. And gold patrons, RPG Papercrafts, Charming Grenade, Pretty Boy and Yuma, Marcos David Vicente Gilberto, Sean aka Cert2B, Adam, Dead Lizard Lounge, Aukshi, and Sam. Thank you all very much for your support. The Far Realm is Dungeons and Dragons version of Eldritch Horror, or Cosmic Horror, which has been increasingly pervasive in a lot of fantasy and sci-fi entertainment and media, thanks to the magic of public domain mainly, and because it's cool, like, you know, elder gods and just creepy weird shit for the sake of creepy weird shit is pretty cool. In Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, it exists pretty much solely within the Warlock class, and even then solely within one subclass of the Warlock, which is the Great Old One. Which is awesome. I am, of course, biased towards that because I played a Great Old One Warlock, eventually multiclassed into Paladin, and had a lot of fun with the powers of the Awakened Mind and telepathic powers and all that. So there's a lot of fun stuff to be had in there. I don't think you necessarily have to be a villain, although it certainly lends itself to, you know, evil cults and worshiping all these mysterious elder gods and all that. I think there could be ways you could have a PC not necessarily, use these powers but not be evil, certainly. Whether you want to do like the Illidan thing and have it be like I fight evil with evil, or maybe I was cursed with this but it doesn't define me. There's different ways of doing that, because I would always hesitate to playing an evil PC, although you can certainly have a evil-centric campaign if, everybody's on board with that. What this does is it adds 4 new subclasses that are Far Realm themed, outside of the Warlock. So it adds one for Barbarians, for Clerics, for Druids, and for Rogues. It's pretty short. It's about 12 pages long. Similar to Xanathar's Guide in terms of how it breaks down the new subclass. It gives just a very brief few paragraphs of an explanation, and then it breaks down kind of what you get at the important levels, and then any important traits and things involved in there. Overall, I think it's a really fun addition. It's one of those that fits really well with the theme that's already in D&D, so you don't have to necessarily play a certain theme to be able to use these classes necessarily. I think some of them definitely work better than others. 2 of them specifically are a big thumbs up from me, and the other 2 are a little underwhelming and kind of middling, and I'll go into why I think that is. But just looking at this, I am really, really, really impressed with the just visual presentation and overall layout and design. And that's something that I've increasingly been commenting on with DM's Guild products. How does it actually look? When I open it up, is it just plain white paper? How is the art fit in there? How does the sidebars fit in? What kind of color schemes are you using? What is the font that you're using? This is the kind of stuff that would be if I were to be a creator, it would be a pain in the ass for me, because all I want to do is write content. I wouldn't want to care about the layout or the formatting or any of that stuff, but it is so important to the overall final product and presentation that you have, and this one does an absolutely fantastic job of that. Just having the dark background with the kind of amber-colored text, and then the way it uses the blue and the yellow here, and the splash of color with these nice kind of cosmic, almost like science fiction art for a lot of these, it just looks really, really good. Absolutely fantastic. I can't praise enough just not even reading the content, but just the visual layout, the way the color schemes are used and everything. I really want to put this on a pedestal for other creators to look at this and say, look, this looks really good. And yes, there is a printer-friendly version. If you're looking at this going, oh my gosh, I don't want to use that much color, when I'm printing it, totally understandable. I'm always going to review, because I'm doing this digitally, obviously I'm going to review the standard document, but there is a printer-friendly version available so that it doesn't break your poor inkjets. But this just looks really, really good, and I really enjoy how it's just the use of color and font and layout and art and all of that makes just it elevates it as it does. Like it, no matter what the content here is, like a good presentation will elevate your product, and then a bad presentation will do the opposite. It'll bring it down. So the 4 classes, as I mentioned, Path of the Meat Shaper is for Barbarians. And this one reminded me of the, I think it's the Simic Combine from Ravnica, which are these, which is actually a race, not a class. But you can choose to have different kind of body part abilities that usually maybe animalistic in nature. It also reminds me of Divinity Original Sin 2 had a really fun skill tree called Polymorph that was the same kind of thing. You could grow wings, you could grow bull horns, you could have spider legs, you know, as like kind of like spell-like abilities. You could just change your body into different things, and it was really, really fun. It worked out well. This one for Barbarians does a similar thing in that at 3rd level, 6th level, and 10th level, you can choose a new deformation, which allows you to have your body be changed into all these, including that one with the eyes all over. That's one of them, which is the Eyes of Weird Hunger. But you can grow wings. You can have an amorphous body, basically be more like an ooze. You can have your body get more chitinous. Gibbering mouths, which is really cool. Obviously, like a gibbering mouther. Just a bunch of mouths on there. And each one of these comes with 2 new abilities that you can use. For example, the gibbering mouther one, the trait is that while raging, enemies within 5 feet of you suffer disadvantage on concentration checks. That's pretty cool. Probably won't come up a lot, but just a neat little ability and thematic that they're kind of always whispering and creepy. And the 2 abilities you get are, as a bonus action, you can let your mouths whisper truths about the world and add 1d6 to intelligence or wisdom skill check. Or you can scream as a bonus action in combat, and creatures chosen by you within 20 feet must make a con saving throw. On a failure, they are frightened of you by the end of your turn. And the save DC is based on your constitution because you are a barbarian. And that's what your shit's going to be scaling off of. So really fun that you can choose additional things. I really like classes and subclasses that allow you to further define your characters even after you've chosen a subclass. I think the Warlock Invocation is probably the best example of that. Also the Fighter Battlemaster, where you can choose the different like fighting abilities like parry and riposte and all those. The fact that you can have 2 Battle Master fighters and actually have them have completely different abilities is really fun, like the Warlock Invocation and like this one. There's not a whole lot of them added, but I think there's just enough to make it interesting. There are some prerequisites, so you can't choose the wings, you know, at 3rd level, for example. That one's not till 10th level, so not to your 3rd deformation. It does seem very, very powerful. By the time you get to the 10th one, you've got 3 of these. You can have a lot of extra abilities, but none of them feel like they're grossly overpowered so much. And it just, it feels really fun. And plus, those special abilities I just mentioned, they're not at will. They're actually tied to, let's see, each deformation grants 2 special attacks. You can use them a total number of times equal to twice the number of deformations you have. So as you gain more, you'll be able to gain more uses, and then you can regain uses after short rest. They are based on short rest, so that will allow you to use them more. But it scales pretty well. It just seems like a lot of fun. And Barbarian is one of, I think, the most underwhelming. I say this as someone who, Barbarian is my least familiar class, by the way. So a lot of the Barbarian fans will be like, oh, I love Barbarian. Like, that's fine. I hear you. Just on paper, it just feels like, you know, the only class in 5e, that can't ever learn how to cast spells. Doesn't seem like it has quite enough to make up for that, even though they are, like, super powerful in their own right. But this one adds a nice bit of extra abilities and fun things they can do, and it's very thematic to the Far Realm, which is cool. You get all these crazy, weird blob abilities, or monster legs, or tentacle arms. All that shit seems really, really fun. And that was going in what I was talking about at the beginning, where you don't necessarily have to be just this villainous monster. You can be someone that was just cursed this way. You know, maybe you're trying to deal with the fact that you're like partial monster, and maybe you're not a monster at all. So I think that could make for a really interesting player character as well. Let's go on to the Cosmic. So that was one of the ones I liked, was the Barbarian Path of the Meat Shaper. I think it was really cool. The Cosmic Domain, obviously for clerics, they have domains, is a bit underwhelming. You'd think that a cleric who was in tune, maybe specifically with a elder god, you know, a great old one, would have some really fucking crazy abilities and be able to do some really fun stuff. And that's really not the case here. I was really kind of disappointed in how kind of underwhelming the Cosmic Domain is. You gain, obviously, some Warlock-style spells, Arms of Hadar, obviously, Blur, Crown of Madness, you know, you get some new spells, okay. Your domain is allow you to do an AoE confusion, which is kind of odd because I don't think confusion is technically a condition. It just says that they attack the closest creature during their next turn. And if there's no target that can be attacked, they lose their next turn. And you can actually designate it to just enemies only, which is interesting. So you can just scream at those enemies, I guess. But you talk in like deep speech and intone this. So that's pretty cool, I guess. The 6th level spell is doesn't seem very thematic. You can touch somebody and do 2d6 psychic damage. The target is forced to use its reaction to attack you. That's not great. And then they suffer disadvantage on basically everything, and then you have advantage on them for their next turn. And you can just use this feature a number of times. You do gain heavy armor as a trait for taking the cosmic domain, so I guess you're meant to just go up there and touch people with this derelict touch. It just doesn't feel very necessarily thematic to the far realm. You can add your wisdom modifier to the damage you deal with any cleric cantrip at 8th level. You know, these just aren't very... These just kind of seem like you could apply this to a lot of different domains. I'm not sure what necessarily makes it far realm themed. The best one is probably the Lurking Insanity, which is you can give yourself a new skill or tool proficiency, but while you have the additional proficiency, you have to subtract 1d4 from all of your wisdom and charisma skill checks because you're kind of going insane from that, which that part's probably the most thematic part of it. But otherwise, it's just very kind of underwhelming. It doesn't seem special enough or thematic enough for clerics. Circle of the Blot for Druids. This one is probably the most difficult to translate into a non-evil druid because their main thing is now they're corrupting the land with like cosmic or with eldritch dark evil energy, and it's kind of hard to spin that as anything other than a bad villain thing. This one seems weird on paper to wrap my head around in terms of balance. It seems very, very underwhelming in terms of balance level because I do like the fact that your wild shape becomes monstrous. That's pretty neat. You can deal an extra 1d4 necrotic damage, which scales up a little bit. But again, you're not a Circle of the Moon druid. You're this own one, which means you're tied to the basic wild shape restrictions of the base druid, which is kind of garbage, at least compared to the moon druid, which is amazing. So I don't know if doing that much more, a little bit of damage, helps a lot. The other thing you can do is you spew forth this kind of mucus, oil, evil growth on the ground in front of you, and you do that by gaining, it's called Serra Biotic energy. And you do that by gaining a pool of d4s equal to your druid level. You can then, as a bonus action, I guess it's within 60 feet of you, not necessarily in front of you, you then roll these dice, and then that number of 5-foot squares become difficult terrain. That's it. It just becomes difficult terrain. And you can regain these dice when you finish a long rest, but otherwise you don't even know how many you're going to do. You have to roll these dice to see. So for every dice, you get 1 to 4 tiles of difficult terrain, and that's all. I cannot imagine hardly any situations where creating a section of difficult terrain is going to make a whole lot of difference, especially if it's only, a handful of tiles. It feels very, very restrictive. The fact that you have to roll dice to even get some feels oddly restricted. Now, later on, it does use it in some neat ways, but not until way later. It's not till 10th level. So again, you get that ability at 2nd level. Think about how the most amount of D&D games are played, I would assume, in Tier 1 and Tier 2. So not until 10th level do you get to do something cool with it, which is a number of creatures up to your wisdom modifier that are standing in your, they call it a mucus, but it can really be any kind of, in fact, it's listed right here, Serra Biotic appearances, which can be different kinds of things. They can take damage. You make a spell save, they have to make a con saving throw, and they take 3d6 necrotic damage, or half as much on a successful one. And then you can concentrate and just repeat that effect. That's cool, but you don't get that until 10th frickin' level, and you only get it once per long rest, which is, again, oddly restrictive. And at 14th level, you get further things that you can manipulate by exploding the mucus. I like the fact that you do a thing, and then it keeps being able to do more things, but the thing that you can do at 2nd level is just really stupid and minimal and restrictive, and it takes too long to get to the really good things, in my opinion. The only other thing you get is at 6th level, you can summon aberrations instead of animals, which that is cool. If you have summon animal, that opens up to be a lot cooler creatures and is thematic. You can also change into them with your wild shape. However, again, as I mentioned with the wild shape changes, you're still tied to the basic Druid wild shapes, which are kind of bad. I believe you don't even get CR1 until 8th level. And at 8th level, CR1 is not very good. And fun fact, I just went through and glanced through the monster manual for aberrations. None of them are CR1. Like Grells, hello cat, Intellect Devourers, Gibbering Mouthers, Spectators. These are all CR2 and 3 creatures. So when I first read that, I was like, oh, cool, we can change into, Grells and Intellect Devourers and all kinds of crazy shit. No, because you're still tied to the main Druid restriction of only CR1, and you can only do CR1 when you get to 8th level. So at 6th level, you're left with basically nothing that can really be changed because there's no low-level aberrations like that. This is fixed, sort of, with the addition, and I think the designer realized this because they added here an entirely new aberration stat block of an ooze that's a CR1. Specifically, I think, to solve that issue where, they probably looked at this and said, oh man, yeah, transforming into aberrations is cool, and then realized, like, oh shit, that actually doesn't give you any aberrations to transform into. You can still summon some of them. I forget what the summon animals is, but I think it's up to CR2, which gives you some cool ones to summon, but you can't really transform into any, so that's why you're given this amoebic crawler stat block, which is interestingly balanced, I'll say. It's difficult for me to kind of tell how well it is, because the main thing that a druid can do well is transform into a meat sack, because they get all those temporary hit points in addition. That's what this thing is focused on. You get an average hit points of 64. 8d10 plus 24 for a CR1 creature is freaking bananas. That's crazy. Now, Grand only has an AC of 10, only a speed of 20 feet. It's very slow, very easy to hit. It doesn't do the split thing of an ooze. But still, that is a ton of hit points to work through. I mean, you are the tanky tank for a while. Now, its actual offensive capabilities aren't that great. It only does a +2 to hit, although it does do 2d6 damage, 1d6 bludgeoning, 1d6 acid, and it does have a 10-foot range, and it does make 2 attacks, but a +2 is going to be pretty hard to hit anything that's got decent AC. But still, your job as a Druid wild shaping is probably going to be to absorb hits, and this thing does that very well. So that might be overcompensating a little bit because it is so tanky. I am glad it's added here, though, because that was one of my concerns for this entire Druid class, was like, well, wait, a big thing is that you can add aberrations, but there are no actual low-level aberrations you can take advantage of. So, underwhelming. This one is at least better themed than the Cleric, I think, in terms of using the Far Realm theme, but it just feels like that whole corrupting the land with this kind of mucusy stuff, which I picture part of it can either be like this viscous oil or like the pink stuff from Ghostbusters 2, like this kind of undulating, oozy mass. I just don't think it does anything special until 10th level, and that's a long, long time to wait until you get cool shit. Meanwhile, that Barbarian Meat Shaper is, got all these cool abilities that they can grow all their body and do all this cool shit way before 10th level. So I think it's a little underwhelming as written. So that would be one of my kind of thumb, not necessarily thumbs down, but a thumb kind of midway. Thumbs up, however, to the Far Lurker, which is the rogue Far Realm themed subclass. This one is really impressive. I think does some really fun stuff with using the rogue. You gain unstable energy die. So beginning at 3rd level, first of all, whenever you attack, Relentless Stalker is amazing. Whenever you attack somebody that has no other creatures anywhere near it, you automatically gain your sneak attack benefit, which is basically the one disadvantage to playing as a rogue, is you always need to have advantage on an enemy, which means you typically need to be flanking with an ally. This one completely solves that issue, which almost seems too powerful, because now it makes the rogue be able to basically sneak attack everything on the board. Void Conduit means you gain, every time you do sneak attack damage, specifically with Relentless Stalker, which means you have to be able to use it when they're not in with their allies anywhere within 10 feet of them, so you have to really isolate them. You gain a D4 die of unstable energy. You then have to keep attacking until you have 3 of these die, and then after you do, you can use a bonus action to add that die to your damage and deal additional elemental damage. If you can kill them, then you get to keep one of those die, otherwise you spend them all. This is a really cool feature that reminded me of the World of Warcraft Rogue, and I'm sure a lot of RPGs, where you kind of gain charges as you attack that gives you an additional resource. Because I believe the Rogue didn't have any mana at all. It was just pure, you're gaining these, I forget what where I'm calling them, charges, but you would gain little pips and blops or something, dots, and then you could then spend that to do your actual moves, and you would get them as you hit. This reminds me of that a lot, and I think that's a really cool resource to add for the rogue, which is really fun. The other abilities you get are also equally fun. They can even at later levels just teleport to the far realm and then teleport back, and that lets them gain more unstable energy die, as well as a random far realm effect, which is kind of like a wild magic surge in terms of if it's good or bad, which is really interesting. And then eventually you can actually use your unstable energy to mark an enemy and then teleport them to you, which is also incredibly powerful. So whereas the Cleric and Druid felt a little underwhelming, the Rogue, I think, is amazing and maybe just a little bit overwhelming. And the tendency for creating new content is always to make it, I think, overwhelming, because you want to make it cool. Like when you're a designer, you want to add a bunch of cool stuff, and it's difficult to try to pare that back and balance that with the existing material. And this one, I think, just flirts with that line pretty hard in terms of this one looks, unlike the last two, this one looks very, very strong on paper. It fills a lot of the kind of holes in the Rogue toolkit that's meant to be, they already have big advantages here, and then here's their few disadvantages. This one kind of shores up the few disadvantages they have and makes rogues very, very powerful. But I think it's also very in keeping with the theme. I think Relentless Stalker, in terms of separating them, is really cool. Being able to teleport enemies to you by using, power of the void or whatever. And then even being able to disappear into the far realm plane and then come back and have all these unstable die that you can use is very, very cool. I like that a lot. So thumbs up on the Far Lurker for the Rogue and the Meat Shaper for the Barbarian. Kind of middling thumbs to thumbs down on the Cleric and Druid overall. But let's go over I pretty much just did, my pros and cons for those Lost in Madness, because we just covered the whole thing. That was 12 pages. Pros: outstanding visual presentation and layout. As I mentioned, I absolutely love the artwork here. I love the font, the color scheme, the background color. Like, everything works really, really well and makes this a very enjoyable read just visually, and looks really, really nice. This is just honestly the gold standard for how I want material to look on the DM's Guild. Just very, very impressed. Pro: the Path of the Meat Shaper and Far Lurker have fun thematic abilities and traits. I really, really love these two classes a lot. I think they have a lot going for them, and they fit very, very well with the Far Realm theme. Cons is the other side of the coin. The Cosmic Domain and Circle of Blot feel a bit undercooked and underwhelming, especially compared to the other two. They just don't. The Druid, the main problem I just had with the Druid is that ability at 2nd level just doesn't feel very good up until it gets to 10th level. So it just takes a long time, I feel like, for the Druid to get fun. And I feel like a lot of gameplay in D&D is going to be those, tier 1 and tier 2. So I just feel like this one is, just compared to other Druid circles, less fun until you get to tier 3. And then the Cleric just feels boring overall. It's just, I feel like there's so much you can do if you're channeling a god from the far realm, and all you do is you can add Wisdom modifier to cantrips, and you can touch somebody to deal psychic damage. Like, none of those feel very powerful or thematic or interesting to me, but I do like the other two. Final verdict for those Lost in Madness: if you want to think outside the Warlock for Far Realm themed PCs, look no further than those Lost in Madness. Thank you to everyone for watching this video review. You can see my written review at roguewatson.com. You can support my work at patreon.com/roguewatson. You can follow our own D&D adventures here on my YouTube channel. Thank you.